What's up everybody, I'm Derek, this is Rocking eForge, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. In one of my previous videos, Blacksmithing for Beginners Part 1, I made this leaf hook. Now I made this over the course of that video, and one of the comments I got on that video asked me how quickly I could make that style of hook without talking to the camera, explaining, giving tutorials, etc. Now, I took that question as a bit of a challenge, so let's find out. Now, in the interest of not showing you every single minute of this in the course of however long this video takes to film, I'm going to be using this clock from my 8-hour knife making competition video, which you can find up there, and that way I don't have to worry about making sure to check my watch, etc. Now I am starting from basically zero preparation here. I've got a piece of 3/8 inch square stock, and the forge is cold currently, so we are going to time this from start to finish using that clock. And I will be not showing you all of the time that it spins in the forge. Just know that on my honor, I am not stopping that clock, mostly because I am competitive and because I have my own curiosity to appease here, and I very much legit want to see how quickly I can make this given no preparation and no warm-up. So without any further ado, let's get rocking. And 3, 2, 1, start. Started. The challenge here for me is going to be, while the steel is in the fire heating up, I've got to change camera angles to make this video a little more interesting. So it still won't be fully representative of if I was able to just bounce back and forth between the fire and the anvil, but it should be pretty darn close. And as you can see, it's already been 2 minutes and the steel's not even hot enough to forge yet. All right, for the interest of audio, I'm going to turn my forge off, but I'm going to primarily keep this on. I'm about 5 minutes in, and the steel's finally hot enough to get the first heat forged on. I'm just going to isolate this leaf material here. I start out using a forward taper to forge the point of the leaf. And I'm going to switch to probably doing voiceover. And then continue using that forward taper method to isolate the material that will become the leaf here. Let's not mess that up here. Yeah, it's abysmal. All right. Maybe shouldn't have done this without a warm-up. Now the key to this is putting it in the right spot in the forge so that the point that I'm trying to heat up is actually heating up at the time that I want it. That'll give me the fastest time here. And I'm going to continue isolating this leaf, forging out the stem down to about the thickness that I want it to at the very end. Noticing and trying to correct some off square here. It's going to be a bit smaller of a leaf than I originally planned, but that's okay. Now that I am fully satisfied with where the stem of the leaf is, I'm bringing it to the near edge of the anvil now to forge in the reverse taper that will become the tip of the hook itself. Now I'm just starting here at the actual tip of where the hook will be, and then I'm going to blend that in to the rest of the hook and taper that all the way up to where I'm going to punch a hole in the future. All right, so that is technically the third heat, but we are already in at 11:09 and counting. Now I'm going to simply use this heat to continue just blending that taper into the body or the main portion of the hook here. And then as you can see, this is starting to pick up a little bit of a banana shape to it, so I just like to keep the piece straight, and so I flip it over onto the opposite side and then continue working that taper in from the opposite side. Now I bring it back to working on the stem here. I decided I wanted the stem a little skinnier, so I go to forge this down a little bit slimmer, and then here in just a moment I will turn it on the edges right here and start forging that into an octagon, and then I will start rounding that up right here as I just continually twirl the piece on the anvil to get that stem to a nice round. All right, now the forge is hot enough that this piece of steel heats up a lot faster, so we're in about 14.5 minutes right now.
I'm just going to continue refining this taper here. I'm going to touch mark and then punch that hole shortly, but I think I'm going to separate this. No, I'm going to keep this on as long as possible, actually.
Okay, so the next step here is going to be punching the hole, and you want to make sure that you do this before you bend the hook because it's way easier to do this while the whole piece is straight. I'm going to come in here with my ball end punch to widen that material a little bit more than it currently is. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to drop the ball end punch and going to come in with my flat tipped round punch to just continue punching that hole and get a nice flat sided hole through the entire piece.
Heat it up one spot more than the other.
Now as I continue punching this hole, my main goal here is to compress the material in the hole that's left over to the maximum extent possible so that I can flip it over and drop the piece repeatedly before I can actually try to back punch the hole and get a nice clean hole out of it. Now I struggle here quite a bit just trying to get it onto, or to stay flat on the anvil, and I end up deciding to cut it off at the anvil so that I can finish punching this hole. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using the sharp edge, near edge of my anvil here to just drive that point down and to the point where I can just knock it off because it's a weak point in the steel. Now you'll notice I didn't get this very hot when I brought it back to the anvil, and that's actually by design. I don't want this piece to be overly hot when I back punch this because I don't want the piece to spread as much as I want it to shear. And that's one of the big reasons I use a flat faced tip to this punch as opposed to my ball end punch, because I want to shear the plug of that piece of steel that's left in that hole out. And the best way to do that is to do it nearly at a black heat, or just start at the red and then let it cool down as you're punching through, and then take that over the Pritchel hole over here and punch through until that plug is fully punched out of that hole. Now you can watch me struggle as I try to get this thing off my punch a little bit. Come on. There we go. And here you have a nice cleanly punched hole for a screw or a nail.
Time to work on the leaf.
So what I'm doing here first is coming in with the flat side of my rounding hammer, flipping over to the rounding side of my rounding hammer, and trying to spread this leaf out as much as I possibly can. The big thing here is to hammer down on the corner or the edge of that leaf and flatten that out from the center. And then this type of leaf is a Brian Basile style leaf where I'm using the rounding hammer to simply spread laterally from a central kind of raised ridge there in the middle of the leaf.
Yeah, am I running out of propane? Oh no, I think I'm running out of propane.
Now I'm trying to work real quick here because I failed to prepare for this video and managed to run out of propane on my main tank. So I'm just trying to get every bit of spreading out of this leaf as I can with every hammer blow real quick. And in my haste, I actually managed to start bending this leaf at like a 90-degree angle from what I should have done. And it gets a little awkward trying to fiddle it back into the shape that I want, or the orientation that I want with relation to the hole. But I managed to get it there without too awful much trouble, but it looks pretty awkward as I'm going through here. And I apologize about the forge burners whistling in the background. They are currently barely able to stay lit just with the amount of propane left in the tank, and given the amount of heat that I had in the piece, I wanted to get this last heat done before I had to shift the tank.
This thing out a little bit. Hey, I like that. Kind of accident, but not bad. I'm officially out of propane on that tank, so I gotta see if my backup tank is full or not. 25 minutes. All right, I was successful with the backup tank. That one lasted me a good 4 videos, I think, 4 weeks. Now I start off here by just doing a little bit of refinement of the point of this hook, and then making sure that I'm bending it away from where the leaf sits. First I start the just little penny scroll here at the tip of the hook, and just refine that here on the anvil just with the hammer. I go over the edge here a little bit just to make sure that the tip of that scroll is really fully into the actual center of the curl. And I cool off the tip of that curl and then start bending here at the edge of the anvil. I don't know if you can see the horn, so I'm gonna have to bend this like this. And I ended up not liking the way this shape was coming out, so I did sacrifice a little bit and not get the shot of me bending it over the horn, but I like the shape that I ended up with a little better. Now, bending it over the horn did widen things out a little bit, so I just brought it back to the flat of the anvil and wanted to close that up with the hammer just a little bit more. I probably didn't even need that last heat, if I'm being honest. You could beat mild steel into submission pretty quick, even when it's cold. And in the end, I like to just finish off my pieces with a nice little coating of beeswax while the piece is still hot, just to give it a nice black finish and give it a little bit of rust prevention. And I'm going to call that time at 29:07, and I don't have the remote, but I'll zoom in. So 29:24, even having to change the tank and everything. Wow, that was a whirlwind. This was definitely not my best work for sure, and probably not my fastest. If I'd done a warm-up and you know, prepared to actually do this, I probably could have done it a little bit faster. And if I had been previously prepared with a full tank of propane, I wouldn't have had to waste time switching out the tank and stuff like that. But all in all, what a great time. This was a nice like after work experience to just see what I could knock out in half an hour, and I succeeded. Just shy of half an hour from cold forge to fully complete with a wax coating and everything. Now I didn't touch mark, and I'm going to count that fine because the one that I made in the blacksmithing for beginners video was also not touch marked, mostly because it was too small, but that's fine. And I actually drilled this hole and I punched this hole, so I could have saved some time by simply just drilling this hole, but I didn't want to quench it or cool it down, because I wanted to keep as much heat into it as possible. But that is going to do it for this very quick project. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, or ring that notification bell. If you want to support me in the channel further, please consider becoming an honorary striker on my Patreon. That link's in the description below the video, or please consider becoming a member on my YouTube channel. And as always, keep on rocking.